YouTube and all ships at sea, this is Steven the Mini Scratcher bringing you yet another high quality video presentation, he said with a wink and a nudge. Yeah. Alright, what's on the menu today, kids? What are we going to talk about? Alright, let's talk about wood. Yes. I want to talk about distressing wood, aging wood, weathering wood, doing things like peeled paint effects and charring, burning effects. And here's an example of the peeled and chipping paint effect. Is this thing going to focus? Is it? Are you sure? Okay. Anyway, you get the idea. So we're basically going to go from this, which is your standard, well, it's not a standard, it's your basic craft stick, and end up with something like this, or as you will see later, the burned, charred effect. Now, excuse me, in order, I think, in my personal opinion, in order to effectively work with a material, you need to have a familiarity with that material. You know, back to basics type stuff. Now let's talk about wood. Now, of course, this is not a tree trunk. This is a branch from, actually, not even a tree. It's from a bush. But for illustrative purposes, it'll work just fine. Now, when a tree grows, it grows not only upwards, but outwards. Its circumference changes. Well, its diameter. Well, I guess circumference too, but the diameter changes. And on a deciduous tree, which is any tree that loses leaves in the fall, has a growth season, you know, during the spring and into the summer, and when winter rolls around, of course, it goes dormant. And that's when you lose the leaves in the late fall, early winter. And each one of those growing seasons is represented by a series of concentric rings. Of course, this is not a tree trunk, so there's no real example to be seen here, but you understand my meaning. I'm sure you've seen it and heard people talking about counting the rings in a tree to determine its age, which is relatively accurate. Something else you can tell from these rings is the environment of each growth year. Maybe one year there was I don't know, maybe a forest fire or something, and there's going to be a lot of carbon in the tree. Excuse me. So that will show up as a darker colored ring. Well, Steve, what do rings have to do with the price of tea in China? Well, if you'll hang on a second, I'll tell you. It's very simple. Those rings, when they're in this direction, now most lumber is cut to be used for boards and craft sticks, or popsicle sticks, lollipop sticks, whatever you want to call them. They're cut this way. And since no tree is perfectly straight, as you can see here, there's a little, you know, weft and warped. Weft and warp. That's what I meant to say, and that's not even correct. But anyway, they don't grow in a completely straight line. So these circles are going to be in different places. So when you cut the boards this way, you end up with the grain of the board, which is all that it is. You know, the grain is actually just the rings kind of stretched out, and you can sort of see it here. If the camera will focus, you see the little bit of striation here and here and here. That's just the ring stretched out because of the way the board is cut. Okay, well, why is that important? Well, that plays several parts in this. Because each ring is a different density. That's why people use stain, is to bring out the depth of these different densities in the wood. Because some densities will reject the stain a little bit, some will more readily accept it. So you get a differentiation, therefore a kind of a striation, contrast, if you will. And that's why, you know, staining wood works. Okay? So now that we got the basics of this down, or I hope so, I haven't confused myself, much less everybody else, let's talk about what you can do to age the wood. I have tried several methods. I've done washes, black washes and what have you, and with varying degrees of success. But something I found on a woodworking page has done absolutely wonders. And it's this slightly evil looking concoction right here. It looks either like stale coffee or soda that's lost its fizz pop stuff. And all it is vinegar and steel wool pads. Not the kind with the soap in them. You can use a kind with the soap in it, but usually it's a blue soap, and that will affect the tint of your final outcome, your final product. There's the acid in the vinegar breaks down the steel and the steel wool, and you can actually see that. Probably not on this camera, but every once in a while you'll catch a little glimmer of something kind of sparkly looking a little bit in there, and that's actually where the vinegar has broken down the steel wool pads, and you get little bits of steel in there. And there's an oxidation process that goes with that too, a rust, which I'm working on an experiment. I've got some material that I've been using as a chain link fence that's actually metal, and I'm letting it soak in this solution for a while. That's why I only have a little bit left in this jar. But I'm going to try some rust oxidation effects. Now this my special sauce over here, like I said, I got that from a woodworking. This is not something I made up. This is something I got from a woodworking website. You need to let it sit for, personally, a minimum of 5 days. How I did this was, and this batch that I have here is probably about a month and a half old now, and you really start getting the good use out of it after about a week or so. You fill the jar about halfway up with vinegar, and toss in a couple of, and I bought the steel wool from the Dollar Tree, so they look like the Nabisco shredded wheat. They're just a little bit bigger than that. They look like little tiny pillows of steel wool. So I put about 3 of those in there with the vinegar. And once I had the oxidization process going on, I don't even know if I'm pronouncing that right. Oxidization? Is that correct? Somebody let me know. Where's my producer when I need him? Anyway, so once that process starts, then you can add your water, and that actually helps keep the process going. So you get, what this is basically liquid rust, but it does wonders when turning, from this to this. And you can see this looks like old wood that's been exposed to the elements. Now, why is it darker when it's exposed to elements? There's a lot of dirt in the air, dirt in the environment, and there's actually a bleaching process, because if you notice, this has a really gray tone to it. It's not brown wood. Brown wood is usually stained wood. This is fresh. It's kind of light tan, whatever. But exposure to the elements turns the wood gray, and I'm not exactly sure I have enough science in me to tell you why that happens, but yes, it does happen. Alright, and you may be thinking to yourself, scale-wise, this isn't the size of craft sticks that I'm normally used to seeing. No, I like to buy the skinny ones. This is your normal size. And I've noticed when I built with these, it's exactly what, it doesn't matter how you cut them, it's exactly what it looks like. Popsicle sticks, or lolly sticks, or whatever, it's something you put a sweet treat on. Okay? It doesn't matter how you cut the ends or anything. To me, and these, especially on the scale I'm working, these seem to work very well to represent the approximate scale size of, building material wood. So there. Now, not only exposure to the environments weathers your wood, but there's also wear and tear. And that's where you have a couple of super specialized tools that come in handy to help you deal with that particular situation. Steel brush. Yes, this one's been around the block or two. I can see a little rust on that, come to think of it. But that's okay. That's all par for the course. Now, you can go to any extreme you like, but just simply rubbing down your wood is going to roughen it up and give it a rough texture. Not only has this piece of wood been exposed to the elements, but it's also been, you know, trod upon by people and animals and everything else. So there's that wear and tear is going to show. And also when you're building your project and you want to show where there's been a lot of foot traffic or whatever, that's where a very fine grit sandpaper comes in, like on door thresholds and things of that nature. Another little specialist tool here that I enjoy using. Now, I found this tool actually in my front yard. Yeah, apparently somebody lost this and decided they weren't going to miss it. Yeah, it's a pocket knife. Now, don't get me wrong, I've got several really good pocket knives, but the reason I like this is if you look at this tip here, this is not particularly sharp, not in a cutting manner of sharp. And that's good because what I want to do is gouge the wood more than I do actually cut it. Why? Because cutting it is just, it's thin. Cutting it is very thin. It's very, it's too neat looking. It doesn't appear to be any actual damage. So this jagged kind of tip here will leave nice gouges in the wood, as you can see. Which, if you've got a piece of wood that doesn't have a whole lot in the way of grain detail to it, this is a great way to add that. And you can see where the blade is pushing through the wood, or pulling through the wood, as opposed to actually cutting it. It's gouging it, and that's what you want with wear and tear. Okay? And this will come in handy here in a bit as well. Now, let's say that you're doing siding of a house or barn or what have you, and you want that, you know, kind of nifty painting, peeling, chipping, paint, peeling, and chipping kind of effect like this. Sometimes it's just easier to show you than tell you. Okay, sure. Okay, so and by the way, that's something if you're going to add this effect on, it's probably best to, no, it's not probably, it's definitely best that you put your wood through the weathering process first. Okay, so yeah. Oh, let me show you, I guess, before I do anything else, how quick and relatively easy it is to get. Now, look, this is the lid of the jar that I've got my vinegar in. See, that's all rusty looking oxidation that we're using as a stain for this wood. So let me show you how fairly easy it is to and quick this actual staining process is. Now I'm taking my lollipop stick, whatever you want to call it. I'm actually sticking it in there, getting it a bit on, and you can see where, obviously, where it's been and where it's not been. And if you let this air dry, and I'm not going to sit here with the whole for the whole video and just, you know, watch stain dry, but I'll show you by the end of the video, you'll see a marked difference between the. I mean, you can already see a difference, and it's actually bringing out some of the grain a lot better too, if you'll notice. So it doesn't take long, but when it's completely air dry, it's amazing. And the darker parts of it will catch in the denser parts where there's more of the grain, where there's more difference between the grains, the rings. Oh God, one of these days I'm going to learn how to speak English. Okay, all right, let's go on to the painting technique. Now, if you're talking about an older building, say late 19th century, early 20th century, it's probably not going to be paint. It's probably going to be something known as whitewash, which is more or less a thinned down white paint. Now look at this, while I've been talking, this stain has really caught in, and it's nowhere near being completely dry yet. You'll see. So yeah, whitewash is a thinned down version of paint. It's closer to a technique known as pickling, which I don't know as much as I pretend to about that. Okay, so we want a cracked peeling paint texture. This structure is long overdue for a paint job. So what is the first step? Well, just like most terrain building and scratch building, it begins with glue. Now, you can use any brand you want. The school glue is fine for this. In general, though, I tend to prefer the wood glue. It's thicker. I think it has less moisture in it. It dries faster, and it provides a nice little base in order to actually, you can take a knife and peel chunks of paint off with that. But it does leave a yellowish tinge when it dries, as opposed to just regular school glue. So that's the problem with the school glue, is it may take a minute or two for it to dry, but I'm just going to do a thin layer just for demonstration purposes. Just lay on a thin bead of that. And, you know, some people might get all fancy and use a brush. I get in there with my finger. There's something tactilely refreshing about just getting in there and touching the material. I know it's taken a turn for the bizarre here. I'm sorry. It's always that way with me. Alright, and what do we want to do? We want to wait a minute and let this glue develop a skin on it. That is to say, that let the top layer dry a little bit. And while that's happening, I'll let you know why this works. And once you have the skin dried to the point where you can actually apply paint with a brush, which is what I'm going to do next, is, you know, a little bit of white paint, just a little cheap acrylic craft paint. And what happens is the paint will dry quicker than the glue. So the paint has its surface tightened up and ready to go. And what happens when something dries? It tightens up, right? It contracts in on itself when it dries. So the paint will dry first, and when the glue starts to dry, it will start pulling at the paint from underneath, and it'll pull it apart. You know, make seams, I guess. You know what? I think I need a little bit more glue on that. I may pause this and come back, do a little time-lapse type thing here, because I think I need just a tad more glue on this. I know it's more than a tad, but hey, I refuse to be bound by my own definitions. Okay. You know, let's put things where the camera can see them, Steve. That might help a little bit on a YouTube video, don't you think? I get so aggravated with myself sometimes. I am probably my own worst critic, my own worst enemy. Apparently I just don't like myself a whole lot. So, I'm kind of unforgiving. Alright, I'm probably going to pause this for a minute, because Daddy needs a smoke and a pancake. So, we'll be back and I'll show you how this progresses. And so you can see a huge difference already right there. And that's just been, while I've been yakking. And see, look how it brings out the grain in it. Isn't that gorgeous? That's awesome. Alright, I'll be back in a minute. Right, I'm back. This glue hasn't quite developed a skin on it as much as I would like, but it's something you have to keep in mind. It's a kind of a balancing act of knowing when to put the paint on and when not to. Because if you put the paint on while the glue is still very wet and very motile, not motile, that'd be moving on its own, but while it's still movable, you're just going to end up mixing PVA with paint, and nobody wants that, really. And the effect is not going to be as great. So, Yes, I know a real professional would have like a blow dryer or something in here, but you know what? You've got me, so just deal with it. And I think we're probably at the point where I can safely do this. I could be wrong. Well, you know, I thought I was wrong once, but I was mistaken. So let's do this. Put a little paint there. Out. Get my brush. A little dip in the water there for my brush. There should be like circus midgets or something performing for you right in front of camera there, so that anyway. All right, and you get yourself a decent amount of paint. Not a, well, maybe not a thoroughly saturated brush, but something close, something where you can lay down a thick layer without having to push too hard. You know what I mean? So we just do, and we'll do it down here too where it's not been treated with the glue, so that you can see the difference when the reaction starts happening. And again, it's because one material dries quicker than the other that you get this effect. So, and this may take a minute or two. Well, I know it's going to take a minute or two, more than a minute or two actually. So we'll move on to something else while that is happening. Okay. And we're going to talk about a little arson here. Yay, arson. Everyone needs a hobby, sure. Arson, let's talk about arson. Alright. So maybe you have a building that you're constructing that's had some fire damage. You want to, indicate some burn damage without having the whole building just completely, ashes on the ground. So you want to do something to represent that. And let me dry off my brush here, and we'll continue with that, and I'll show you. Oh dear, my brush just came apart. That's not good. I need to glue that back together. You would think that when a brush starts coming apart, when when this sort of thing happens, it might be time to just throw away and get a new brush. But I'm not like that. I hang on to stuff. This has been a great utility brush for me. It really has. And I just enjoy the hell out of using it. But that's just me. I'm nuts like that. Oh dear, and I put my rag right on the right on the drying project. That's okay. It'll still work. You'll see. You'll see. You'll all see before it's over with. Okay. And if you hear that popping in the background, is my chair, my computer chair. It's what now? 15 years old now. It's really time to be thrown out and have something in. There used to be upholstery on this, and it used to have a color. Now it's just black dead skin cells all over the arms of the chair. Oh, that's nasty. Oh, let's check back in with the staining here. Focus, you bastard. Focus. There you go. Focus. Okay. See? A marked difference between the two. There. Where the stain was applied and where it wasn't applied. And I don't know if I guess it is a stain technically. There may be a woodworking term for what it actually is. I don't know. But anyway, you can see where it's picked up the grain of the wood due to the different densities, which is what is the causation of grain in wood. And, again, my way of doing things is not necessarily the right way, and it's definitely not the only way. I'm just showing you how I function, how I operate, how I do it. So you have an idea. Excuse me. Goodness gracious. Too much coffee. Yeah, too much coffee. Sorry about that. All right. Now let's talk about fire, fire, fire. Okay. Let's say, just for grins and giggles, you've got a building that's suffered a little fire damage. Now, I know if you go and Google, do a Google search on burnt wood, you'll see a lot of what is called alligator texture, which is a lot of crosshatches in non-linear fashion across the wood. where it looks like alligator skin. That's why they call it alligator texture. Anyway, and that happens usually at the hottest part of the fire, usually the point of origin, because that's where it's going to burn the hottest for the longest. And what is happening is there is moisture in everything. This dry piece of wood actually contains moisture. Everything contains moisture, or else it's powder, because moisture is what holds everything together on a molecular level. Not to get, Bill Nye Science Guy on you here, but I mean that's what it is. And so as the wood burns, as it burns through the thickness of the material, it's going to dry out a layer. And it's going to, when the layer dries out, it cracks and it shrinks, giving that cracked earth, alligator texture kind of thing going on. So that's why that exists. Now you can replicate that very easily. And again, I've said it before, I'll say it again. You're playing with sharp stuff, and pretty soon we'll be playing with fire. So if you are underage, I would suggest, nay, demand, that you get, if nothing else, at least parental consent to do this, if not out and out parental supervision. I've got a cup of water handy in case anything goes south on me here in the in the Tiny Scratch studio. So this is how I do my scorched wood effect. And again, we bring out the trusty, gouging instrument. And again, this gives you more definition than an actual sharp cut will, because it's gouging out the wood, not necessarily cutting it. If you see the difference there. And it's not as jaggedy cut as I would like it to be, but oh, there we go. We're gouging some out now. We're gouging with gas now. Okay. You can see where it's beginning to texture things a little bit. Maybe if I put more of an angle on it, like so. There we go. That is of which I am speaking. Alright. If you don't learn anything from these videos, maybe you'll at least be a little entertained. Okay, so we have one direction of this. Now when I start going across, you'll probably see get a bit clearer idea of what I'm talking about as far as this alligator texture. And now he wants to be a rippy, jaggedy thing. Okay, that's fine. And remember, this is all non-linear, so to speak. It's not, you don't have to have a series of straight lines. You want a little bit of randomness, because that's nature, right? So I'm merely gouging my wood here. Oh, geez, that sounded all kinds of dirty, didn't it? Sorry about that. So, I just amuse myself some days, Now, the thing is, at this point, once you get these gouges finished, and maybe, get in with a magnifying glass or whatever, and do some little touch-up here and there, but you're basically got this kind of thing going on, right? And in all likelihood, you could probably go back in with, say, some black wash, and maybe a couple of different shades of black, charcoal black, jet black, whatever. To me, it's all black, but I'm just racist like that. No, I'm not. But anyway, you could probably finish this off with paint. I haven't done that because I'm just too attached to the real thing. Plus, I likes to play with fire. What can I say? Oh, wait, a quick progress update on my paint weather. You can still see there's still wetness there, but you can see, if this will focus, dang it, dag nabbit, would you focus already? What is this? Oh, come on. You can see where there's a little bit of separation starting to happen along the top. Now that's another difference between using just the regular thinner type school glue as opposed to the wood glue, is that the crackle effect on that is slightly smaller. You'll get a much larger effect the thicker the glue is applied. But again, you want to use caution because you want to hit that sweet spot between it being dry and being cured. You know, that top layer having a skim over it, or the whole thing being cured. So you don't want to, you know, put the glue down and 24 hours later come back and want to try to paint it, because you'll just end up with, you know, a painted spot of glue on some wood. And really, who wants that? Very few people, I can tell you that right now. So, all right, now, fire, fire, yeah, fire. All right, okay, calm down, Steve, calm down. All right, my trusty handy-dandy Walking Dead lighter, big lighter, yeah, huh? Who's a cool boy then? Who's a cool boy? Yeah, I am. All right, again, not recommended to do this without parental supervision, but at your own risk, other than that. All right. Now, you can... Oh dear, I seem to put my finger in my other project. That's awesomeness. I'm just making a total cock up of the whole thing here. All right, you can see where there's already some scorching going on there, right? And you can probably continue this without actually catching the whole thing on fire. Fire, fire! But again, to lend authenticity, you want some of this material burned, actually burned. Now see, that's on fire. That's on fire right now. And I could let it go for a while. I think I will let it go for just a little while. Let it crawl up where the pattern is. Okay? Alright. Ooh, smoky. And you can see, well, if the camera will focus, the dadgum camera would focus, you could tell. Now, so you're gonna... I got a little carried away with this one. This is completely my fault, I assure you. Burned too much away. But, you know, if you're going for a natural effect, that's generally what happens in a house fire or a structure fire, is, you know, it gets away from them a little bit. So, yeah, there we go. There's that. Which I've just basically burned away all the alligator texture that I put on there to begin with. So, yeah, that's the thing about doing this technique, is that it's a thin wood, and it doesn't take much for it to go away, if you get my meaning. One thing you want to avoid doing is blowing on it, because that's only going to make it worse. It's like puffing on a cigarette. It'll just ash down a lot quicker. But something, a side effect that I noticed on this is that, oh my goodness, I've got paint everywhere. You see that color? That kind of rust color on the ashes here on the end? That is a byproduct of that treatment, that vinegar and steel wool treatment. That's oxidization. Oxidization? Is it? Am I saying that right, Lovey? I don't know. Anyway. So I've basically cocked this one up big time, so oh my goodness. And to be honest with you, if you want to maintain that the building that you're building, the timber that was burned was interior, like frame type timber, you're probably better off not treating it with the stain. You're probably better off just leaving it its natural color and doing a scorch from that natural color, because that wood that's interior to the building is not going to be exposed to the elements as much, and it's going to maintain more of this look. I mean, you might want to grunge it up just a little bit, but don't go overboard, and don't, you know, don't be stupid. You know, just don't be stupid, that's all. Stupid like me, who has completely wrecked this. I mean, you might see a little bit of the focus. You might be able to see a little bit of that texture. I don't know. Dadgummit, I said focus. What's wrong with you? Focus already. Get with the focusing. You know, I like the quality of the video on this phone. It's just, you know, I just don't like the focus, the way the focus works. I should just go with a fixed focus, and I'm not sure how I would do that because I'm not that smart. So anyway, I basically lost all that texture that I carved in there, that I gouged into the wood. So we'll try this again, and we'll take a quick peep at our boy here with the cracked and peeling paint. And you can see there at the beginning. Oh, focus, would you please focus? Okay. You can see a lot of little tiny cracks, and that little spot there where I stuck my thumb into it by accident. But you can see at the top there where some of that paint, and hopefully by the time I get this done, you'll see a much bigger outcome of that. But that is the basic technique for it, and that's something I learned from a woodworking video channel. So, alright, let me get the reins of my shame out of the way here. Hi. Okay. Sip of coffee will do me a world of good. Okay. Alright. Now we're going to go in with the gouging again. And remember, you want to try to keep this as random as possible. You're just using a direction to put these gouges, not necessarily a straight line, but just in a general direction, north to south or east to west or whatever. And it's okay to cross them like that too. I need to put some more in there because that's just not, it's not cutting it. Okay. So you got this going on now. And then, of course, your cross cuts, gouges, snags, whatever you want to call them. You could get very precise and get in there with a blade that's kind of wide but sharp, you know, like a fat scalpel, I guess, would be an example. And really, with a magnifying glass, and get in there and just kind of really connect the dots and really authenticate this texture. But this is more or less what we're looking for right here. Okay, and maybe a few more here and there just for general purpose. Alright, that looks pretty good. Now, instead of just setting the thing on fire, what I'm going to do instead is just give a little carbonization to it, carbonizing it. But you maintain a close proximity to the flame without actually engulfing it in flame. And maybe you give a little flame brush across it there without actually setting it on fire. See if we can do that. Maybe we'll hold it above the flame. You see where I'm getting, how I'm doing this here? You getting this? Now just remember, the stuff that I'm doing, the technique that I'm using, is probably incorrect. So, no, go, stop. Don't burn it completely away. You know, I'm still working on it. I should not have done a tutorial on this because I'm really still working out the best way to do this. Ow! That is hot. that lighter is hot. Goodness. Ow. Anyway, you get the main idea. Tell you what, work on your own technique for that. I've just gone way over time here, but I've actually got more accomplished than my last tutorial, which, you know, all things being equal, what I should have done is just, instead of doing a video, I should have just posted the link to the guy that does the original barbed wire stuff and left it at that. This is where I got my technique from. This is how you do it, because I wasn't set up to do it right. I didn't plan ahead or anything like that. So anyway, there you have it. And I want to say thank you for watching. If you made it this far, congratulations. You are a better person than I. And if you didn't, sorry. Sorry, I did what I could. So anyway, thank you for watching. I want to thank everybody who subscribed. Thank you for subscribing. And I mean, I'm up to 15 now, which for most people that's no big deal. For me, it's a very big deal, and I'm very, very grateful for it. So thank you for that. And until next time, folks, take care and be well. Mini Scratcher out.